The journey began on a hopeful note. When I met Tony, I was immediately drawn to his calm demeanor, warm smile, and the way he spoke about his 2 children. He was a single father of 2 kids, Aiden, who was 10, and Bella, who was just 6. The love he had for them was undeniable, and it was one of the reasons I fell in love with him. But being with Tony meant becoming a step-parent, a reality I wasn't fully prepared for. I had no illusions that blending a family would be easy, but the reality was far more challenging than I ever anticipated. It wasn't just about loving Tony, it was about loving his children, too. But how do you love someone who sees you as an intruder? The first encounter, an unwelcome presence. Our first family outing was a disaster. I remember taking deep breaths, reminding myself that I was walking into their world, Tony's world, and that I needed to be patient. We had decided to go to the park, something simple. The idea was to bond, have a nice afternoon, and give Aiden and Bella time to get used to me. But they wanted none of it. Bella wouldn't even look me in the eye, preferring to hold onto Tony's hand the entire time. Aiden kept his distance, giving me curt, one-word answers whenever I tried to talk to him. He made it clear I was not his mother, and Bella didn't hide her disdain for my presence. The rejection stung more than I wanted to admit. I felt like a ghost, moving around them but never really seen or acknowledged. I began questioning myself. What had I done wrong? Was I too eager? Too distant? Did they sense my nerves? Tony, ever the optimist, assured me it would just take time. But as the weeks passed, things only grew more complicated. Cultural differences. A silent struggle. It wasn't just the typical challenges of blending a family, there was a layer of complexity that came with being a black woman stepping into a predominantly white family dynamic. Tony's late wife, Rebecca, was white. His kids had grown up in a household that didn't reflect my culture, my experiences, or my identity as a black woman. At first, I tried to minimize these differences, thinking that love would be enough to bridge the gap. But it became increasingly clear that cultural differences shaped our interactions in ways I hadn't anticipated. There were subtle moments, Aiden commenting on my hair, Bella being puzzled by the way I seasoned food, or even their discomfort when we went to events in predominantly black spaces. These were small moments, but they piled up, creating a silent tension that hovered over us like a cloud. Even Tony, who was open-minded and loving, sometimes failed to understand. He didn't always see why certain comments hurt or why I felt out of place in some of his family gatherings. It wasn't his fault, it was just a reality he had never experienced. But that didn't make it easier for me. There were nights when I would sit alone in our room, feeling like an outsider not only to Aiden and Bella but to Tony as well. How could I fully integrate into their world when parts of who I was seemed so foreign to them? Competing with a ghost, living in the shadow of their mother. The hardest part of being a step-parent wasn't the cultural divide or even the resistance from the kids. It was the constant comparison to their mother, Rebecca. I knew I could never replace her, and I never wanted to. But being constantly reminded of her presence, of her memory, of her love for her children, that was a weight I wasn't prepared to carry. Aiden would often say things like, "Mom never did it that way," or "Mom used to cook this dish for us." Bella, though less vocal, would cling to her mother's old belongings, her necklace, a blanket she used to carry around, even her favorite books. It wasn't wrong for them to miss her. She was their mother, and their grief was valid. But it created a deep ache in my heart to know that, no matter what I did, I would never measure up to her in their eyes. There were moments when I wanted to pull away, to tell Tony that I couldn't do it. I couldn't keep living in the shadow of a woman I had never met but whose presence loomed over every interaction I had with his children. But every time I felt that urge to retreat, Tony would hold my hand and remind me that we were in this together. Together. But some days, I wondered if that was enough. The turning point. A crisis that changed everything. The real shift came unexpectedly. One afternoon, while Tony was at work, Aiden had a meltdown. He had been acting out more than usual, getting into trouble at school, talking back at home, and it all came to a head that day. I was home alone with the kids when Aiden started yelling at Bella for touching one of his video games. His anger quickly escalated, and before I knew it, he was in full tantrum mode, screaming, throwing things, and slamming doors. I stood frozen for a moment, unsure of how to handle the situation. But then something clicked inside me. I realized that Aiden wasn't just angry about the video game or even Bella's intrusion into his space. He was hurting, grieving, confused, and I had to be there for him, whether he wanted me to or not. I walked into his room, and even though he yelled for me to leave, I sat down on the floor next to him. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. Quietly, "I'm not leaving, no matter how angry you are. I know it's hard, Aiden. I know it's hard missing your mom, and I'm not trying to take her place. But I'm here for you." For a long time, he didn't say anything. He just sat there, his small body trembling with anger and sadness. And then, finally, he broke down. He started sobbing, tears streaming down his face, and all I could do was hold him. In that moment, it didn't matter that I wasn't his biological mother. It didn't matter that we came from different worlds. All that mattered was that he needed someone to hold him, and I was there. Rebuilding trust. Brick by brick. That day marked the beginning of a slow, painful, but ultimately rewarding process of rebuilding trust with Aiden and Bella. I realized that, for so long, I had been trying to fit into their world without fully understanding their pain, their loss, or their need for stability. It wasn't about replacing Rebecca or erasing her memory. It was about creating a new space for myself in their lives. A space where they could learn to trust me and love me in their own time. It wasn't easy. There were still difficult days, moments when Aiden would shut down or Bella would pull away. But slowly, I began to see glimpses of hope. Bella started coming to me for help with her homework. Aiden, though still guarded, began asking me questions about my childhood, my family, my experiences. Tony was my rock throughout it all, always reminding me that love isn't a race, it's a marathon. Building a blended family takes time, and there are no shortcuts. There were moments when I wanted to give up, to say that it was too hard, too painful, too draining. But Tony believed in us, and eventually, I began to believe in us, too. Learning and growing. The path to harmony. As the months turned into years, our family began to find its rhythm. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. We learned to navigate the complexities of race, culture, and grief. Together, I made space for Rebecca in our lives, acknowledging her memory without feeling threatened by it. There were moments of joy, too. Moments when Aiden would laugh at one of my jokes, or Bella would snuggle up to me on the couch. These moments, small as they were, felt like victories. They were proof that, despite the hardships, we were building something beautiful together. Being a Black step-parent in a blended family is one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it's also one of the most rewarding. I've learned that family isn't defined by blood or biology. It's defined by the love, patience, and commitment we show each other every day. Our family may not look like everyone else's, but it's ours. And that's all that matters. Conclusion. The beauty of blended families. Looking back, I see that the struggles we faced only made us stronger. Blending a family isn't easy, it's messy, complicated, and at times heartbreaking. But it's also full of moments that make it all worthwhile. We're still learning, still growing, and still figuring out how to create harmony in our blended family. But I wouldn't trade this journey for anything. It's taught me more about love, resilience, and the importance of being present than I ever could have imagined. And as I look around at my family, Tony, Aiden, and Bella, I know one thing for certain. We are a family. Not in the traditional sense, but in a way that's uniquely ours. And that, in itself, is beautiful. Overcoming the challenges of being a step-parent in a blended family was not an overnight transformation. It required patience, time, and a great deal of support, both from those around me and from the resources I sought out. Tony and I realized that we couldn't navigate this new terrain alone. We needed help, not just for the sake of our relationship but for the sake of Aiden and Bella as well. So, we started by seeking professional guidance. Therapy became an essential part of our healing and growth. Therapy and counseling. A path to healing. We made the decision to attend family therapy together. At first, I wasn't sure how the kids would react to it. Aiden, especially, was resistant. He was already struggling with the idea of a new family dynamic, and the thought of opening up to a stranger felt uncomfortable for him. Bella, on the other hand, was quiet, hesitant to speak but clearly curious about what therapy might offer. Our therapist was a Black woman, which immediately made me feel more comfortable. She understood not only the general challenges of being a step-parent but also the cultural nuances that often come with it. The first few sessions were rocky. Aiden barely spoke, Bella avoided eye contact, and I was unsure of what I was supposed to say or feel. But slowly, things began to shift. The therapist encouraged us to speak openly about our fears, frustrations, and hopes for the future. She taught us how to communicate more effectively, how to listen without judgment, and how to create a safe space for everyone in the family to express their emotions. We learned that the kids' resistance wasn't about rejecting me as a person, but rather their way of coping with grief and the changes in their lives. Through therapy, I also learned to be more patient with myself. I had been carrying the weight of guilt, constantly feeling like I wasn't good enough, like I wasn't meeting some invisible standard of what a good step-parent should be. The therapist helped me unpack those feelings and reminded me that there is no perfect way to blend a family. What matters is showing up consistently with love and understanding. Building bridges. Small steps toward connection. In addition to therapy, Tony and I began implementing small rituals that helped bridge the gap between me and the kids. Every Sunday, we started having family check-ins, where we'd sit around the dinner table and talk about our week, both the good and the bad. At first, the kids were reluctant to participate, but over time, these conversations became a place where we could connect on a deeper level. We also began incorporating elements of both of our cultures into family life. I started teaching Aiden and Bella about my heritage, sharing traditional dishes, talking about Black history, and attending cultural events together. Tony and I made sure to balance this with honoring their late mother's memory. We found ways to include her in our family traditions, whether it was watching her favorite movie on her birthday or keeping certain holiday rituals she had started. One of the most impactful changes was how Tony and I approached discipline and boundaries. We learned to be united in our parenting approach, working as a team rather than as two separate entities. The kids needed consistency, and once they saw that Tony and I were on the same page, they began to feel more secure. There were fewer power struggles, and though the challenges didn't disappear completely, the sense of tension in our home started to ease. Community support. Finding my tribe. Another turning point for me was finding a community of other Black stepparents who were going through similar struggles. I joined a support group specifically for Black stepparents, and for the first time, I felt truly seen and understood. Hearing others share their experiences made me realize that I wasn't alone in feeling like an outsider or struggling with cultural dynamics within a blended family. These support group meetings were a space where I could vent, ask questions, and learn from those who had been in my shoes. The members offered advice on everything from managing the complicated emotions of stepchildren to navigating the cultural tensions that can arise in interracial blended families. Being part of this community gave me the strength to keep going on the tough days, knowing that there were others who had walked this path before me and come out stronger on the other side. Personal growth. Redefining my role. Throughout this process, I also had to redefine what being a step-parent meant to me. I had entered this journey with the subconscious belief that I needed to win over Aiden and Bella, to make them see me as a second mother. But over time, I realized that my role was different. I wasn't there to replace their mom, nor was I there to force a relationship. My job was to be a supportive, loving adult in their lives, offering guidance, care, and stability in whatever way they needed. This shift in perspective was liberating. I stopped putting so much pressure on myself to be perfect, to have everything figured out. I embraced the messiness of blending a family, understanding that there would be ups and downs, victories and setbacks. And with that acceptance came a new level of peace. A new beginning, creating harmony in our home. As we continued to grow as a family, the moments of connection became more frequent and more genuine. Aiden started to open up to me about his friends, his school life, and even his dreams for the future. Bella became more affectionate, asking me to help her with her hair, or to sit with her while she colored. These small gestures might seem insignificant to an outsider, but to me, they were everything. They were signs that Trust was building, that we were finally finding our rhythm as a family. Of course, there are still difficult days. Blended families are always evolving, and new challenges arise as the children grow older and their needs change. But now, I feel more equipped to handle those challenges, knowing that we've laid a solid foundation of love, respect, and open communication. A life-changing resource. The book that transformed everything. In the midst of our journey, there was one resource that truly made a difference in how I approached being a step-parent. The book Creating Harmony. Building Strong Blended Families as a Black Step-Parent. This book became my guide, my roadmap to navigating the complexities of step-parenting while honoring my identity as a Black woman. The steps outlined in the book helped me understand not only the emotional landscape of my stepchildren but also the importance of embracing my unique role in their lives. The strategies in Creating Harmony were practical, transformative, and deeply resonated with the specific challenges I was facing. It taught me how to communicate effectively, how to build trust over time, and most importantly, how to nurture the love that was slowly growing within our blended family. Practicing the advice from this book was a game changer for me. It provided clarity during moments of doubt and gave me the tools to turn difficult situations into opportunities for connection and growth. If anyone watching this video is struggling like I did, feeling overwhelmed by the challenges of blending a family, unsure of how to bridge cultural gaps, or simply trying to figure out where you fit in, I encourage you to grab a copy of Creating Harmony. Building Strong Blended Families as a Black Step-Parent. This book has the power to transform your journey, just as it did mine. It helped me build a strong, loving family, and I truly believe it can do the same for you.